Hello and welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling. My host, JP John Poz. With me today, very special guest. He's very big there on the YouTube, very big with the WCW Deep Cuts. He's not that Tom Green, but he is Tom Green. Tom, welcome in. How you doing?
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Very comfy in here, the Two Man Power Trip podcast studio. Love what you've done with the place. It's
Yes.
lovely.
So what's going on in your world? What are you up to?
I mean, right now I've been watching Pop Culture Jeopardy on Prime, but
Hmm.
no, just a lot of content creating, as the kids like to say. Big in the shorts and the short form content. Uh, Been doing a lot of streaming every Tuesday night, 9 p.m. WCW Deep Cuts live over on Twitch. Yeah, and off the grid, which is where I find weird, like really like an off the beaten path wrestling, so to speak. And I stream that every other Sunday at 8 p.m. But yeah, other than that, just been hanging out, my friend.
So what's your background, though, as far as, just in general, in life? Like, what's your background?
I not born in, but raised in Crawfordsville, Indiana, which for those few folks whose ears might be perking up is the hometown of the Ultimate Warrior. So technically, I am from parts unknown. Uh, uh, I could not get enough of wrestling as a child. Saw it for the first time my third birthday weekend, August of '90. My brother-in-law at the time, well, he was my sister's boyfriend, had on WWF Superstars Wrestling, and the British Bulldog walked out, and he did not look like any other human being I'd ever seen before in my life, with braids and the giant traps and all that jazz. And I'm like, what is this? And I could not get enough of it. And from that day on, just could not stop consuming wrestling, both to my benefit and my detriment. Um, and ironically enough, considering what I do now, um, my what really solidified my wrestling fandom was that late '91, early '92 WCW period, the Dangerous Alliance run. Uh, it's like I could watch that at any time. It's my comfort wrestling, so to speak. But that really got me locked in. And then from there, again, I was one of the few people who didn't stop watching wrestling in middle school. Most people find like girls and you know activities and such. I didn't. um, but I've also been involved on the other side of the curtain a little bit with wrestling. I've done some commentary. I've booked slash written, whatever term you want to use. I've promoted a couple charity shows about 5-6 years ago before the pandemic. And now I just like kind of getting behind the laptop and chopping it up and uh, contributing to the wrestling world that way, because being on the other side of the curtain is not so much fun. I mean, it is fun when the bells, when the action's happening, but the days between the shows are not so much fun.
It's interesting you mentioned late 91 there. In where I live here in New Jersey, we had a video store for whatever reason from like 89, I'd say, to 92. Basically, the WCW tapes were so easy to get, right, like literally right behind my house. There's a couple video stores right down the street. It was so weird. They always had and I loved like Havoc 91. I love Starcade 91. I actually would rent Starcade 91 so much. Remember that old Triple H story where he said, "Oh, I rented the tape so much it actually broke." That
Yeah.
I was like, "That
Oh
actually
my
is
goodness.
true." I was like, "That actually is true." I actually had to put a piece of tape on it,
Oh
and it would,
goodness.
and when you would watch certain parts of it, it would skip, but it
Uh,
would still play. But that literally happened because I would watch Starcade 91, and people were like, "Oh, that sucked, that pay-per-view."
yeah.
I don't know why I love late 91 WCW. I absolutely love it.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Like how like Havoc '91, people dump on it all the time because of the Chamber of Horrors, and like I get it, but that's kind of like with you and Starcade. Like that was the WCW period that was available at the video store over by my house when I was growing up. Was like that period, and specifically Halloween Havoc '91 was always available. That
Yeah.
was the go-to when everything else was rented, because it was nice. My mom was friends with the lady that ran the video store. It was like a mom and pop shop.
Yep.
And so the wrestling tapes would come in every Tuesday morning, and they would hold the tapes for my mom to go get them. And then I would watch them like Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening after school. And then there was this little old Irish man named Mr. Bushman that ran a convenience store like right next door. And he would always rent them Wednesday morning. So like, and he would actually come by our house sometimes. Hey, is Zombie done with that tape yet? My mom would be like, yeah. And there would be times he would beat my mom to the video store and get the tape, but the deal always was he would watch it and then walk it right back over so I could have it by the time school was over. So it was a cool little thing. It's a shame I'm old enough now that I can get on my soapbox. Kids these days don't get to experience that. Now you just pick up your phone and look, everything's there. Like my son, he's 11. His name's Noli. He has the world's wrestling at his fingertips. At any point, he could be like, "Hey, Dad, has there ever been a guy that's done this or done that?" Or he a couple years ago, he's like, "Have they ever done a match where like nobody could see?" And I'm like, "Blindfold match." And I showed him like 3 of them. Like it's so easy now to access it all, and I just want to be like, back in my day, kid. We walked 9 miles uphill.
Yes, and through the snow and everything else. Yes. And it's like, wow, hopefully nobody rented that tape. Like, when you get there, you're like, hopefully nobody's as big as Mark as me and rented this tape. Hopefully it's there. I hope Havoc 90 is there. Hope Havoc 91 is there. Yeah, I always would pray that they weren't rented.
Yeah, I'm lucky in that the place I grew up, it was me and Mr. Bushman were the only 2 wrestling fans. So it was, if he didn't get there first, I was going to get the tapes. But it was also a weird section of the shop where it's just kind of like a back corner, and the lady that ran it, just any tape that had a guy with muscles on it, she'd put back there, no matter what it was about. So it was wrestling, and I don't know if you remember these B-movie guys, the Barbarian Brothers. Their movies would always be back there. A bunch of weird action movies. And then for some reason, she'd also put Gallagher videos back there. I never understood that. I wanted to ask her about it, but she passed away by the time I kind of comprehended it as an adult.
Yeah. I used to love going there, and you'd get American Ninja or whatever. You get the old awesome '80s, early '90s action movies. But then you got to get the wrestling. You got to get both. But that was the best part about those video stores. It was just so much fun. You never knew what was going to be available.
I think half the fun was just holding the boxes.
Yes.
Almost as much as the content. I just remember think at a shelf for half hour, 45 minutes, staring at the boxes. Oh, that looks neat. I think it was Rampage 91, the WWF tape with Ricky Steamboat blowing the fire. I always remember that.
Yep.
The Survivor Series 1990 tape with all the teams standing in front of the brick wall and the yellow setup. Again, stolen from the kids these days because they just have thumbnails now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's better, but I miss it.
And the physical nature of holding it, that obviously is completely gone now these days too. But that was a great part of it. It was so cool. Maybe you get a snack, you grab some popcorn and you get the tape.
Yep. No, Mr. Bushman's convenience shop had an ice cream store area.
Nice.
We would go over there, get Superman ice cream. I'd get whatever New Coliseum video or whatever WCW tape I was going to get. Then I'd sit home in front of my TV, crisscross applesauce, and I'd watch wrestling for a couple hours until my dad got home, and he's like, "We're watching the news, son." I'm like, okay, let me go play with my my Hasbros in my room.
Yeah, party pooper there.
Yeah.
The video stores by me, I don't know about you, but there was 6 within, I'd say, a 3-square-mile radius. There were so many video stores. It was one of those things where I guess that was the hot thing. Now it's, I guess it's weed shops or CBD stores, whatever.
Yeah.
It used to be video stores.
Yeah, so I grew up. I was I'm mostly raised in Crawfordsville, but like the first 8 years of my life, I grew up in this little town called Rochdale. We had the one convenience store, the one gas station, the one grocery store, and the one video store. They were
Oh
all
wow.
on the same block. So, like, unfortunately, I didn't get that type of choice. When we moved to Crawfordsville when I was 8. There was a Blockbuster there, and my eyes popped out of my head first time we went there. Like, they have so much. I remember specifically they had Super Brawl 1995. Not a good show. It's really, really not. But I rented that thing like a dozen times because it's a new WCW tape I hadn't been able to see.
Yep.
Like, I don't think I saw it till like 1996. So, but boy, did I watch that thing front to back repeatedly.
It's one of those things where I don't know. I feel like it's even better because you're renting it and bringing it home rather than like if I watch even to net like net recent shows. If I just watch them, like it's not that great. But some reason it makes it better when you're bringing it home, and maybe because you're younger too, you think it's like this is great, even though maybe the pay per view is not really that good.
It's like in your head, it's almost like you have to justify, hey, I'm making this trip out and I'm coming back with this thing with almost a hunter gatherer instinct, where you bring back your trophy. Whereas now, it's real easy. I click on a thing, it's up. I don't like it. I click away, and there's 9,000 other things
Yep.
I can click on. Whereas then it's like you grab that one thing. That's your entertainment for the night, and you're gonna like it. Because if you don't, then you better hope something good is on TGIF.
Yeah, because you're not going back out. Yeah,
Nope.
that's it. Yeah. Hey, I didn't like this, Dad. Nope. You were in for the night. We're not going back out. So with WCW Deep Cuts, I'm very so fascinated. How did you kind of get this started? Why did you get this started? Like, what's the genesis of WCW Deep Cuts?
So originally it was just a Twitter account where I had I think it's about 3 or 4 years ago. I had been watching like 96 WCWB shows. And I'm like, there are so many like cool things that can be like turned into GIFs or like weird things that Dusty Rhodes said that I just want to like clip them and put them online. Um, but I didn't want to clog up my timeline doing it. I didn't want to turn my personal feed into that. So I'm like, well, I'm going to do this thing. And the Twitter account kind of blew up. Went through a few iterations because would you believe it that things that I don't own, technically I'm not allowed to post. So I lost a few accounts. I got the main one back last year, though. But around the time I lost the second one, I'm like, I should probably take this and make it into something beyond Twitter because I keep losing these gosh darn accounts. And around that time, I really got into like video essays on YouTube. And I was like, oh, I could do that. I have encyclopedic knowledge of obscure wrestling things, but I also don't have the downtime to script, voice, record, stuff, edit, a 30-something minute video. I've got 2 kids. I've got a full-time job, a wife, whole rigmarole. But what I can do is I can make like a minute long video, and I kind of start thinking about WCW history, and it's like, yeah, most of the stories have been told, but not most of the stories. Most of the big stories have been told. Everybody knows about Eric Bischoff going to that meeting with Ted Turner. He's like, yeah, put him on Monday Nights Live. Everybody knows about that. Everybody knows about the rise and fall. But there's so many weird little stories that have just kind of fallen through the cracks in wrestling history. And it's like, I saw an opening. Like, this could be a fun thing to explore, at least. So I put a few out, and they did all right. And then I think it's February of last year, I made one about the Mongolian Mauler. He was a Killer Kowalski guy who he was working like Puerto Rico and Western Canada. Was in WCW for like 2 TV tapings, and kind of was in and out. I'm like, that's a fun story to tell. So I made it. I put a joke I used to put jokes at the beginning of them. I don't do that anymore because I've learned that people just want to go straight to the content.
Yes.
But I put a joke at the beginning about uh, in January 1994, Killer Kowalski student took WCW by storm because at those same tapings that Mongolian Mauler started at, and he was a Kowalski guy, so did Terra Rising. So I'm like flashing up Paul Levesque clips, and then I did like a little like clickbait joke, almost like, nope, not him, Mongolian Mauler.
Right.
And at the time, I didn't know how to change the shorts thumbnails, and so the thumbnail that YouTube picked was one of Terra Rising, and the captain was like, "This guy lasted 2 weeks in WCW," which we all know Triple H was there for like a year, but it blew up, and from there things got kind of crazy. That video right now is sitting at like 2.7 million views, which
Wow. Damn. Nice.
yeah, like, and then I've had a couple others get a million or so, and I'm like, why would people listen to me talk for a minute? But no, from that point, the channel blew up theoretically. Now I'm and now it's a thing, I guess. We're just again these stories. I've said it in other podcasts before. I don't now that I've been doing it for a little bit. I almost have. It's less the ego of, hey, good job, Tom, good in that video. More, I don't want these stories to die with their generation because they're going to. I don't want the story of Paul White accidentally getting everybody's video game royalties to die because that's so weird and funny. I don't want, the story of the Texas Hangman / disorderly conduct getting to stay around after a bunch of cuts because Jimmy Hart was like, hey, 2 teams in 1, and somebody in the company is like, fine, that's cost efficient. Those stories aren't going to be the ones that WWE tells as they go on, and as we've seen with the Netflix stuff, there's content that's going to go away, and as time goes on, more and more is going to go away, and I feel like with the format that I do it in, because I see my stats too. And there are way more younger people that watch my stuff than you would imagine. And again, it's because I'm trying to present it in more of a that TikTok, that bam, 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 I'm in and out style. I see what my son watches on YouTube and TikTok. I kind of borrow from that to tell these weird, obscure stories about WCW and wrestling history, and it seems to be working. So, but people seem to like it. I enjoy doing it, and yeah.
It is awesome stuff. Where are you getting these stories from? You know what I mean? Because some of them are really, really obscure.
So a lot of them I go to the Observer, the Torch, A Kind Soul about a year ago shared with me a Google Drive that I'm supposed to keep secret of a lot of different like obscure old newsletters like Pro Wrestling Sushi, stuff like Steve Beverly's Mat Watch. There's stuff in there. Steve Beverly's Mat Watch for early '90s WCW gossip is magnificent.
Wow,
There are
awesome.
so many stories, and he's talking directly to Jim Herd, so he's getting to source info and credit the source. He's not just a source in WCW tells me he's Jim Herd says. So but then I'll shoot interviews or gold mine because a lot of these guys are in a hotel room talking into a camera 15 years ago. They don't think, oh, this could live on forever, and they're just gabbing about all sorts of stuff that's never been talked about. And also now I've had a few folks behind the scenes who were in WCW. Now that the thing's picked up, like, hey, you should cover this. Like, I've never heard of that. Could you tell me about it? And then I'll kind of ask around, get a couple different folks to be like, yeah, that really happened. Like the video I did about Vader and Ian Weston, that's never been reported on. I saw the match. I'm like, that looks weird. So I asked a friend of mine that would have been around at that time, and he's like, yeah, Ian went after him and we've never been able to figure out why. And then Ian Weston just disappears. So, yeah. So I've been lucky as I've been more successful. I've had more people talk to me from that era. Uh, and then my other favorite thing is when I'll post a story and somebody in the comments will be like, "Oh, that didn't happen," and then like I'll give you an example. The Fit Finley Lorenzo match, where Lorenzo's power plant guy, for those watching who don't know, real like pretty boy type, who they were gonna run with. Like this is like late '97, early '98, and he wrestles Fit Finley. Fit Finley wrestles a normal Fit Finley match where he's laying stuff in, making it look, giving credibility to the business, but he's not beating this guy. It's not you watch it and you don't think anything's really up other than one kick to the back, and then Lorenzo disappears. And it was kind of like an underground message board lore thing. And like I posted that video and someone's like, "Oh, I watched the match. It was nothing special." And Lash LaRue comments underneath them, "I was there. This happened 100%. I love that. It's a fun thing." So, but yeah, no, the stuff, the information's out there. You just gotta dig. And lucky for me, I get bored very easily, and I love digging.
Love that. That's great. What did happen with Vader and that guy?
So all I've been able to gather from my couple sources that would have been in the locker room is Ian just showed up and was out of sorts and was like pacing back and forth, and he goes to the ring and he goes after him. Like if you watch, for those of you who haven't seen the video, like normally in Vader enhancement matches, the enhancement guy isn't jumping Vader before the bell.
Right.
So the camera, the crane cam is like panned away at the audience, and in the corner, really little, you see him throw a couple shots at Vader, and they cut back to the ring real quick, and Vader's got him in like a neck crank. Like, dude, settle the hell down. But no, like I asked around, it's just like, yeah, Ian just lost his mind that day. And like I said, other than there was one Craig Pittman match like 2 weeks later, which they put him in the ring with Craig Pittman because they knew that, first off, they didn't think he was coming back. And so they came back to center stage like 2 weeks later, and he's there. And they're like, crap. And it's pro wrestling where everyone's kind of passive aggressive. Nobody kicked him out of the locker room. They just put him up on the board. But they put him with Craig Pittman because Craig Pittman could handle himself if he tried that stuff again.
Yep.
Thankfully, he didn't. But yeah, then he just disappeared forever. Somebody in the comments found a photographer's vlog from right before the pandemic. I guess he had had some bad luck. There were injuries from wrestling that caught up to him. He'd been working as a physical therapist for a while, and he just couldn't do it anymore. In like 2018 or 19, photographer found him living on a park bench. He's like, "Yeah, I used to be a wrestler. You can look me up." And sure enough, it's Ian Weston. So I hope he's doing well wherever he is. But what a weird story that was.
Really weird. I know Craig Pittman is doing well. I literally just spoke to him.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's doing great.
I have a couple of indie wrestler friends who were trying to get promoters to book them against Craig Pittman a couple of years ago. I'm like, dude, he's probably. I don't want to speculate on the man's age or anything, but I don't think he's at a place where he's going to want to wrestle. But I have at least one friend that tried to get Josh Barnett to get him for Bloodsport. So but like, dude, that would be fun. That'd be fun if Craig Pittman had a resurgence, but people realize he lived a life before wrestling. So it's not like he got into wrestling at like 18 years old.
Right, right. Military background, legit shooting background. He's a legit shooter. Yeah, he's
Tudo, all that jazz. I did a video about how he almost was in the Dan Severn spot, one of the early UFCs.
Yes,
real close.
I love stories.
Fascinating
like
with the whole. I'm very fascinated by the whole like there's this newsletter narrative for like a year in like 94, 95, where like every week it's like Eric Bischoff's talking to K1, Eric Bischoff's talking to UFC, Ming might be doing UFC. And it's like Ming figured out, hey, I can't do bar fighting in the UFC. Craig Pittman might be doing UFC. And then it's like, oh, Eric Bischoff's mad at the UFC and he might promote a K1 pay-per-view. It's really fascinating to watch it all the way, like this narrative play out in the newsletters, and just nothing ever happened with it. I'd love to, like, that's a great what if. Like, what if, Bischoff actually launched, K1 alongside WCW, almost like the TKO thing right now with UFC and WWE.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating what if.
That would have been really interesting. I know eventually they bring in even more guys like Bob Sapp and Sam Greco, like legitimate guys. But it is interesting because they did have Jerry Flynn, Tank Abbott, Craig Pittman, Haku or Ming, if you will, Barbarian. I mean, they had like legit shooters, Steiner brothers. I mean, they had legit tough guys there at one point too.
I mean, like Don Fry has said that he was heavily recruited for a couple of years. Like he was offered a spot in the Horsemen in like '97. There's the famous rumored Fight Club stable with like Mark Coleman and Don Fry, and it was going to be related to the whole like Steiner's Tank Abbott storyline in like '99, I guess. Yep. It's just a lot again. So that's another great thing about doing all the digging is and like actually bringing to light some of these stories is there are so many great what ifs about wrestling in the '90s that just never get talked about because there's one company that owns all the history and they don't care about that. So it's neat to bring all that to light and be able to speculate a little bit.
Yeah, and talk about guys that like you wouldn't hear much of anymore, but guys that I would love to hear about because I was fans of them. Like we were talking about Craig Pittman. Like people probably haven't thought about him in a while, but guys like that I think of. Even Disorderly Conduct, I always think about. Guys like that. I love those guys in WCW.
Craig, if for younger folks that like the shoot style, like again, like I mentioned, Bloodsport, Craig Pittman. There's a point like when he first comes in before he kind of gets fully integrated into like the cartoon Hulk Hogan WCW world, where like he's doing all these really cool like shoot throws and like it's really fun to watch him like when he first comes up from the power plant or what have you, and he still does some of that stuff even when he things get a little goofier with him later on
with the feud with Cobra.
Yeah, the Cobra feud, which I cannot. The commentators go, "Oh, he abandoned them in Vietnam. He abandoned them in the jungles of Kuwait." Which, spoiler alert, there are.
Yeah, no. It's a desert. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big old desert. Yeah, not a lot of water, but no, it's so many fun. And the thing about WCW, they used so many wrestlers short term. It's like almost every wrestler with a pulse came through that curtain at some point, especially in like the last, like the 96 to 99 period where money's flowing everywhere. And, you'll get like the fascinating, the ultimate WCW match to me is it aired on Worldwide in September '97. It was taped that summer. It's this luchador Atlantis against Lynn Ditton, the grappler.
Yeah.
Nowhere else would that match have ever happened except that moment right there. Like I'm sure there's not enough meat on the bone to do a full like documentary about it, but just talking to, I assume it's Terry Taylor back there just writing down random names on a board and like, how does this happen? And then like half the guys you've talked about, oh yeah, we were in a drunken stupor the entire week, we don't remember what happened. And then you got these guys that are like nervous sitting on the edge of their seats. Oh, I'm there for their tryouts. Just this whole weird blend of, hi buddy, whole weird blend of, again, just wrestling. Like, where else are you gonna get, John Nord in the same locker room as Super Callow? You know, Randy Savage and Ultimo Dragon was a match that happened. It's a lot of fun, and I'm glad that Mike and the gang at the WWE Vault put that up with the Randy Savage mixtape about a month or so ago. Because I'm glad that happened. Randy Savage, that same taping, requesting to work with Bobby Eaton because their bond from ICW, the PAFO territory, and like if you watch, Randy gives him so much. It's like Randy Savage, like top guy in the industry, and Bobby Eaton, the guy in the company who everybody beat. And for like 5 minutes, Randy's like, "I'm selling for you, and you get to do all your stuff." It's so much fun. So much fun.
Crazy. I was on the same wavelength with John Nord. I was thinking, I remember when John Nord randomly showed up.
John Nord. I love John Nord in that period because he's got like the furry boots. He's doing the Nord the Barbarian kind of like look, but then he's wearing like the shirts that like if you got a problem with me, look at the other side.
Yep.
It's funny. And like those worldwides, like he cuts promos into the camera every time he comes out, and he's always talking trash about the NWO. He gets nowhere near the NWO at any point in his run. But if you were to just be watching the syndicated shows, you'd believe that John Nord had this beef with Hogan and Savage and all the guys at the top. And like, oh, I got to see John Nord on Nitro. And it's like, no, he didn't. He just made up his own storyline in his head.
Yeah, where he's just talking directly, breaking the fourth wall, talking right to the camera. Yeah.
Which I love. I love that about WCW. And they're doing it a bit more these days, but I would love, like, looking back, what I love about WCW, among many things, is that guys just after their matches would look directly in the camera and talk trash for like 10 seconds. It's like, oh, I get a sense of your personality. Even if they're not getting direct promo time, you get to learn about everybody.
And I was just thinking another random thing. Benoit versus Black Bart of all things.
Big Train Bart.
Big Train. Yes, so weird.
So weird.
And actually, he gave him like a good amount of offense. It's like an actual good back and forth, like 7-minute match. I really liked that. I thought the match was great.
Have you seen the match? The version of the match. There's a Benoit Mark Starr match from around that same time. The WCW Prime version.
Oh, Prime.
Where Chris Cruz brings up, oh, Benoit is just like Dynamite Kid. And Dusty Rhodes loses his mind about how much the Dynamite Kid sucked, how much he hated the Dynamite Kid. Dynamite Kid couldn't lay Story Funk Jr.'s boots. Dynamite Kid wasn't a top guy, didn't draw money. Just the whole match, this whole Benoit Mark Starr match, which is a decent match.
Why is he?
It's like Dusty Rhodes so mad.
Yeah. Why is he hating on Dynamite?
I don't know if it's just him and Dynamite never really worked together. Other than they didn't even cross paths in the WWF.
No.
No. So I think a lot of the top maybe the beef would have been Dusty, even if he said he didn't. He was reading the newsletters at that time. He's probably reading Meltzer and them being like, oh, the Dynamite Kid's the best wrestler in the world. Meanwhile, Dusty's drawing all this money. He's like, Dynamite Kid can't do crap. And
right.
That whole thing. It's a fun Prime, especially, is a lot of fun because nobody's paying attention.
Right.
Nobody in that company's paying attention.
Like, so Dusty will literally take the camera and be like, look, we're wearing shorts. And then they're literally, him and Chris Cruz are wearing shorts, but with suit tops.
There's a period on Prime where he was doing I forget what the segment was called, but it was like he was telling road stories once a week. And he was telling stories about a groupie named Slither, because she would slither into the locker room and see all the guys naked. There's one segment where he just goes on for 2 minutes about how him and Dick Murdoch used to get drunk in a car and throw beer cans out the window. I'm like, cool. I mean, this is fun looking back on it. I don't know how it's productive, but it's funny looking back on it.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Nobody's paying attention to Prime, but him and Cruz are having the time of their life with
it. Costumes. and just going off on playing with the green screen and going off on their little tangents about people they don't like in the business.
Yeah,
It's
crazy.
a lot of fun. We don't get that anymore. The closest we would get is like AEW Dark, but even then, like somebody's paying attention to that. They won't go completely off the rails. Like they
Right.
won't go on there and be like, Taz won't be like, hey, you know who I really hated was I don't know, Hack Myers. You don't get that anymore.
With a Mark Starr, now that you've kind of ignited a memory here, what was going on with him and Ricky Rude? What the hell was that all about?
I don't know. Like that one I need to look into. Because Mark Starr he was an enhancement guy for years in W. It's kind of like
Yeah,
the Ian Weston
many,
thing.
many years. Yeah,
Yeah, like
always wrestled everybody.
yeah, and like even after that, like the year after that, he got the minute work push.
Yep.
Funny enough, I tell the story in my streams all the time. When I was a kid, I was a weird little kid. My favorite wrestlers when I was a kid were Jumpin' Joey Maggs and Mark Starr.
Oh my
Like when I would
God.
when I would like play wrestle in my room, the scenario I always booked was I was the hot baby face in WCW. I was feuding with the stud stable, Colonel Parker's guys, Buck and Slater and Ming and Funk and all of them. And my backup were Mark Starr and Joey Maggs. And like I'm trying to get my mom to
How
find them. I
random.
used to like essentially do fantasy booking, but like before I knew everything was a work, but like write out cards that I would want to see on like upcoming shows. And it was be like Mark Starr winning the TV title or Joey Maggs feuding with, top guys. I'm like, these guys are
Why?
good.
What?
They're just set up for failure.
That's crazy. Why those guys of all guys?
I was into like plain trunks, plain boots type guys. I was a weird kid. Like I loved Arn Anderson when I was a kid. I didn't know what being a good worker meant or any. I like that guy. Or like Steven Regal. Steven Regal's my favorite wrestler ever. But like even when I was a kid, like when I would like write out my little cards, he would always be like fighting for the world title. I liked again, just the guys that showed up to work and they're playing their trunks, their boots, no flash. Never a Hogan kid. I liked Sting only because he would do like cool dives and stuff. But like even then, I was like, Sting, if they just let Mark Starr wear face paint, he'd be just as good as Sting. That's what my little 8-year-old brain thought.
Hmm.
You know?
With Joey Maggs, I was thinking about this, and I wanted to talk to Todd Morton of all people about it, but I haven't got the chance yet. Hopefully,
Are you talking
I
about the
will.
Midnight Express thing?
Yeah, what is
Yeah.
up with that? Were they supposed to be like the new Midnight Express or something? Like, what was going
I
on with that?
heard okay, so yeah, and that does come up in the newsletters, and they do buy the matching tights and do a couple
Yeah,
of like enhancements, but the guys getting squashed. I always heard, and I've never had this like 100% confirmed. I need to ask around about it. That it was a rib. That somebody like Terry Taylor or somebody was like, "Hey guys, yeah, we're gonna make you the new Midnight Express, ha ha ha." And then they went and got tights made, and then they came to the tapings, and everyone's like, "No, nobody said that." And it's just jerks from above being like playing a prank on them. But they
yeah,
got the
yeah.
tights, so they wore them anyway. Because why not? They're cool looking tights. Uh, but I'd love to know if there was more of a story to that. And that's interesting, getting the guy that looks like Ricky Morton to be the new Midnight Express. Like that's
Yeah, it's
very
weird too. I was like very curious, and even recently, they released some stuff on the Vault on the channel, like random Saturday nights. And Morton will sometimes have on the outfit. He'll be like
yeah.
the Bobby Eaton, if you will, but he looks obviously like Ricky Morton, and he is a Morton
And see,
technically.
the funny thing is, Bobby Eaton was there. So why
Yes,
wouldn't Bobby Eaton be involved in the new Midnight Express?
yes, so weird.
Because Bobby Eaton was still wearing those
Yeah,
tights. So just
basically.
having the one guy from the Midnight Express exist while this new Midnight Express is also forming, but has nothing to do with them.
Very
But
strange.
that's also stuff like that would happen at WCW, where there were like 9 bosses. 2 of them would be like, "Yeah, that's a good idea," and then 7 of them would be like, "I've never heard that," but they still put it on TV anyway. That's a very WCW move.
Yeah. Jumping Joey Maggs, even, sometimes would have a manager like Teddy Long
Teddy
eventually.
Long.
Weird, yeah.
God, that had somebody in that company must have really not liked Teddy during that period. Because I know he got put back on TV because he was doing all that community work, the community service, And he's like, hey, listen, I can't really go around to these schools and be like, I'm from WCW and I haven't been on TV in 3 years, you know? So they're like, fine, we'll give you the lowest guys on the totem pole.
Yeah, Jim Powers and Jumpin' Joey Mags. Yeah.
And the thing is, they did the story where they put Bobby Eaton with Joey Mags, and I think Bobby Walker was involved that period. But like, they put them together, and then they took them apart. But then they did the thing where Teddy Long's like, "Oh, I got a partner for you, Joey," and then it's just Bobby Eaton again. It's so weird. Like, and it went on for like a year. WCW had a few stories like that where it would seem like whoever was booking the show just forgot what point they were in the story. Like a better example that people might know more of would be like Colonel Parker and Sherry. That story went on 2.5 years where they were together, they hated each other, they were married. No, they're not. Now they fall in love for the first time. Like that story doesn't end till like 97. You know,
Then they wrestle. Yeah.
Yeah, they wrestle each other, and then Medusa's involved. But they always like would go back to a weird point. It's not. I've never seen stories told like that, not just in wrestling, but anywhere where we're jumping from point A to point E, back to C, and then to F. We're gonna go to S now, then back to A. Like
some wacky booking.
Yeah, it is. Like I see the hyperbolous, thumbnails these days about today's wrestling, blah blah blah, and this is just like WCW. No, it's not. Nothing is like WCW. Nor I don't think will it ever be like WCW. It's that company was a perfect storm of messiness and corporate greed and so many bosses, but yet there was nobody at the wheel. It's like you have 9 drivers, but none of them are holding onto the steering wheel, and yet everybody in the car is like rocking back and forth trying to knock it off the road. You'll never see anything like that again. You can't.
And then throw in there, they had some of the biggest stars and some of the best.
Yeah.
And then even throw in some of the best storylines ever. The NWO. I mean, geez.
And that's the thing, is they were totally capable of it.
Yeah.
They could tell a long-term, there were people in that company capable of doing that. And then there were people in that company who might have been capable, but they didn't want to. And then there were people that definitely weren't, who were put in positions to tell stories. It's just so weird. And again, they had like I think at the peak, it was like 200 something people to manage on that roster. Yeah, you're going to run into, storytelling faux pas along the way when you're trying to get that many people on the show.
Yep.
It's just impossible. But when the boss is like, yeah, sure, we'll bring in, Wayne Bloom in 1998 when he hasn't wrestled in 3.5 years. Yeah, we'll bring him in. Sure, whatever. It's kind of hard to find a place for him.
Yeah, we'll bring in the amazing French Canadians randomly. We'll bring them back.
And like those guys got it better than most because they at least got a spot with Colonel Parker. PCO's career, that's
still
incredible.
Going.
Incredible. He's going to be on the GCW show.
Yeah, I was going to say he's like one of the big surprise guys that they said that just kind of just pulled out that he's going to be there.
Yeah, but like he's been a consistent. He's always been, you watch the '93 WWF stuff. He's doing all this cool stuff that guys are doing today. Those Quebecer squashes are fun. It's not about WCW, but I love the Quebecer squashes. Yeah, Jacques will just do like a package pile driver. It's like, wait, what? And
kill those
gears flying all over the place. Wild. And like those guys, like 97 WCW, again, they're just so out of place. But they get Colonel Parker. They kind of get a story for a little bit, and then they're just gone. But I mean, Jacques gets the Hogan match on that Montreal show, which that show I love. I've seen the fan cam of it. Have you ever seen the? Some of it has surfaced lately. The Montreal specific TV buildup.
No,
it's so weird. you would have thought Jacques was the top babyface in WCW based on it. Like you get Hogan doing promos at the locker room set. You know, the ones where like the low card guys would come and cut promos, like come buy tickets to Nitro. You know, that set. You'd get Hogan cutting promos there for the Montreal show, and him and Jacques doing angles. And the Giant and Pierre did the eye patch match, and they were doing angles at that set, and then there was like a contract signing angle, I think a few weeks before the house show, and there's like Jacques comes out of his car, he's like waving to everybody, and then like Hogan jumps him. It's like, what? God. This just feels, it's like an alternate timeline. Like something happened.
What a buildup.
Yeah, like, and it's like not bad stuff. Like, and then they drew the big house in Montreal, because Jacques is for all the things you could say about him, Jacques is a good event promoter. And then at the show, funny enough, because the show footage is out there plenty on YouTube.
Yep.
For some reason, on a WCW house show, Pierre comes out to his Jean-Pierre Lafitte WWF music. Like, why? He I'm sure it was on one of the cassettes you guys brought from Atlanta, the Amazing French Canadians music. No.
Weird.
But yeah, you would have thought it was a completely different company based on that one show. It's so weird.
Hogan's so loyal to like guys he's friends with, guys he likes. I just saw Jacques is doing a signing again at the Beach Shop. In 2025, he's still friend. Like he's still hooking him up all these years later. He does the job for him. Now he's still hooking him up. Awesome stuff. I love that he's still loyal to Jacques.
Yeah, like Jacques a fascinating character in wrestling history, just because of all of the things he's kind of weaved through. It's like they show up in Attitude Era 1998 WWF after that.
Yes.
Like, so weird. Like it's, and like Jacques even part of Kevin Owens' origin story. Like,
yep.
It's just, it's really cool. And again, I love that PCO is still around doing stuff and being relevant. He's not just, oh, hey, here's this weird old guy we're going to bring back to do a Canadian Destroyer spot. No, he can actually go out there and wrestle a match. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's still good. Yeah. So looking at WCW, just going back to, because I love WCW Deep Cuts, do you have a favorite one, like an absolute favorite, or one that you like, oh, people need to check that one out?
Of all the videos, trying to think off the top of my head, like I really love the Vader Ian Weston one. That's a pet favorite of mine, just because it's a story I feel like I unearthed, and I'm very proud of that. Like a lot of them are just me being like, oh, I found this in an old newsletter. I found this in a shoot interview. That's one I'm proud of, because I feel like that's my story. Like,
Yep.
There's I'm trying to think of any ones that the thing is, I've done like over 100 of them in a year. So I'm doing 2 or 3 of them. I'm editing 2 or 3 of them a week, so there's some stuff. I love the one I did on the origins of the Chamber of Horrors. The fact that was the 3rd idea that they landed on, because they were going to do the first idea, and I got this one from Steve Beverly's Matt Watch that I was talking about earlier. Originally, the Chamber of Horrors was going to be a match instead of a maze of mirrors. And going to be terrible. 8 or 10 guys fighting around in a maze of mirrors. And then somebody spoke up and was like, how are we going to fit that in the same building as a wrestling ring and a set? And they're like, crap, I guess we can't do that. And then they were going to do the world-class like Thunderdome match, where you have the 8 guys in the regular steel cage. You got to like handcuff them to the cage. And then there was this line in one of the Matt Watch newsletters, like, turns out that they didn't trust Doug Dillinger to get enough gimmicked handcuffs for the show. Retired cop. So they finally, they're like, let's just put up the Thunder Cage with a bunch of weird stuff on it and call it the Chamber of Horrors, and we'll electrocute a guy. And I love that that's the 3rd idea they had. Like normally that stuff, it's like, oh, we have a really crazy idea and we're just gonna push ahead with it. No, that was like Dusty's third idea. Um, I also love the one about the Georgia Red Clay Battle Royal that Dusty came up with. The one time that Jim Herd's like, can't do that. That's too weird. The Clash a month before that, Dusty wanted to fill the ring with Georgia red clay. It was like mud, and have 20 guys wrestle in it. And Jim Herd's like, no, can't do that. So they just did a
Yeah.
regular battle royal instead. But I am partial to the Chamber of Horrors one just because that match is a pet favorite of mine. I know it's weird and people don't like it, but like we like full circle back to the talk about the VHS tapes. Like I've seen that show probably 4 dozen times now. I love it.
Yeah, I love that. I was going to say, besides WCW Deep Cuts, which is great, maybe perhaps your best video, just because I think it's so freaking hilarious, and just because he's a fellow Jersey boy, uh, Big Boom AJ,
Oh
Eric, the
yes,
power child, if you will, Eric Justice, who I used to see raise the roof at, in 2005 at house shows in random spots in New Jersey. But yeah, Boom, bringing the boom. I love the My Sacrifice video.
thank you. Yeah, that was just like a weird idea. It was there's this indie wrestler who's kind of making the rounds right now named Ben Bischoff. Like he's
Oh yeah,
gigantic,
yeah,
huge,
big Ben, yeah.
7 tall, like jacked. I'm like, how are you not signed? But he put out this idea, like, hey, somebody should do a My Way video for that QT Marshall Big Boom AJ match. I'm like, I'm gonna do it. And so I did that like 2 days before, like the day before the match, and that got traction. I'm like, I'm onto something here. And then the night of Full Gear, I watched the presser and the little motivational quote that I put at the end that AJ says about how we're just here to like make people happy, show people that it's okay to be happy. I'm like, that's something you would hear on one of those WWF Desire
Yeah.
tapes. I'm like, I got to do this. So I rush it out in a day, and that one blows up even bigger. And yeah, I love it. And then the cool thing is, I'm not speaking at a turn. Like I've kind of put it out publicly, like because in the video, I'm proud to say I'm friends with AJ now. Like, we texted each other on Christmas. He's called me a number of times over the past couple of months. Such a sweet guy. Like that's the thing. A lot of these like content creator, YouTube TikTok superstar types, you can tell it's a facade and there's no personality behind it. The buffumos are 1000% real. Like I've been talking to them and I've heard Big Justice. I'm like, oh yeah, that's the kid. And like, I was up for a pretty decent job in the world of wrestling about a month ago, and I didn't get it. And AJ found out. He was on me like every day for about a week and a half, like making sure I was doing all right. And he'd call and he'd text and genuinely was concerned for me and was politicking for me, quite frankly. And we've talked about maybe doing some stuff in the future, like actual like a collab thing. So hopefully that works out. Actually, I need to text him after we're done here tonight. But yeah, I love AJ. He's the best. It's so weird. Like a year ago, I just the world just found out about them. It was like January of last year. The Costco guys video blows up. I would never have thought that Christmas that year, I'd be trading, Merry Christmas, hope it brings the boom. And, he's like, yeah, bring the boom. And, he's asking me when we talk, he's like, just wanting to learn about my family, learn about where I live. We talk about family and we've had a couple chats about professional things, but it's mostly just been, he's a good-hearted dude, and everything good that has come for him, it's 110% deserved. He is such a hardworking dude. They are such a hardworking family. Like, I was on the phone the first time I talked to them. They were in Texas. they were shooting some stuff with like a restaurant out there and with like the Cowboys, I think. But like I was on the phone with him at the hotel, and he's keeping a conversation going with me. And I hear people in the background asking him for pictures. He's going for selfies, and he's keeping the same train of thought going with me on the phone. He's got Big Justice telling him, "Hey, we gotta go, Dad. We gotta shoot. You know, over here we gotta Uber." He's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm talking to Tom. Don't worry." And people selfie, yeah. And the the fact that he's able to like keep that. I got confused just listening to it. Like I'm like, dude, you can go. He's like, no, 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 no. I want to talk to you. I want to learn more about you. AJ's the best. AJ is the absolute best. And I am so happy that they're continuing down the wrestling path. They've got some real cool stuff lined up for 2025. I hope if it all hatches the way that it sounds, it's going to be pretty cool. And again, it could not happen to a better dude.
Love that guy. I love the power child, if you will. I know obviously he's a big move agent, but I love the power child, Eric Justice. But as we hit the wind down here, we head towards the finish. Where can everybody find you, find everything you're working on, especially WCW Deep Cuts?
Absolutely. So I'm on pretty much every social platform. You just look up Not That Tom Green. I pop up. That's TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube are where you'll find the WCW Deep Cuts shorts. I'm just calling them WCW Deep Cuts. Which this year, it's the other day as of when we're recording. Not quite sure when this is going out, so I don't want to date it. But I'm expanding a little bit. I put out an ECW Deep Cut because I found a funny story about ECW Hardcore Heaven 2000. I'm like, I gotta make a video about this before anybody else does. So I'm going to start doing that, kind of also because I'm afraid that someday I'm going to run out of stories about WCW. I got to do something to fill it in. But no, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, just look up Not That Tom Green. Well, Instagram's Not That Tom Green Reels. Not That Tom Green's the personal page. So you're not going to find anything on there except for like pictures of my kids. I'm on Twitter, Blue Sky, Not That Tom Green. I also do a series called Why They Rule, where I'm kind of trying to game the algorithm that's always like so negative, like negative videos, negative thumbnails about wrestling always get pushed to the top. I'm like, now that I have the algorithm in my favor, let's use it to push out some good. So I make like minute-long videos about why I'm like my favorite wrestlers are good, and trying to expose against. Like I made a video about Lenny Poffo. I've got so many people commenting, I didn't know that he could do that. I didn't know that he was doing springboard sentons. Yeah, Lenny Poffo's pretty sweet. So I do those once a week as well. And then again, like I mentioned at the beginning, I am a Twitch streamer every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, WCW Deep Cuts Live. We watch the old WWB shows, kind of, again, randomly pick them, keeping up with the WCW randomness. And then every other Sunday, I stream on Twitch and YouTube live for Off the Grid, where we watch some weird off the beaten path wrestling. Like this past week, we watched North American Wrestling Alliance, which would then become South Atlantic, where their babyface roster was like Ken Shamrock, Ricky Steamboat, Tatanka, just so random, so weird. Like weird stuff like that. Like we watched some IWCCW on there before. We watched the other Southeastern, not the one that would be Continental, but like this weird Tennessee group that I found that was running like public access shows in like 1990. It's bizarre. I love bizarre, weird wrestling.
Me too.
I stream that every other Sunday. And then, if you're on YouTube and you're watching this, and you click over to my stuff, you're like, hey, I like Tom. I also have a YouTube membership deal set up. $1 a month just kind of helps me out. $4.99. We do a stream once a month called Not Quite Wrestling, where I find something that's kind of like wrestling, but not really, and we watch it. Like this month, we're watching Fight Zone. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's some weird like pay-per-view series from 1995 where they're trying to present movie fight scene looking fights as MMA. Like we did it. We watched some of
Wow.
it last year. Like Tony Halme wrestles Mick Tierney in the first
Wow.
fight of this group, and they're just doing pro. They're doing like shoot style pro wrestling, but they're doing pro wrestling. Like the finish is a clothesline. It's just bizarre. But like we watched WMAC Masters before, Roller Jam, stuff like that. That's on the membership tier. But yeah, thank you so much, John, for having me, letting me ramble for the last hour.
Love it.
And it's been a lot of fun.
Thank you. I appreciate all the time tonight. Thank you so much.